Welcome to Compassionate Heart Parenting. I'm Michelle. If you've ever snapped at your kids and then felt the wave of guilt afterward, or wondered why you reacted that way, you're not alone. After 15 years as an emotionally focused therapist, I have learned that parenting brings up emotions we didn't even know we were carrying. Here, we'll explore what's beneath those reactions and the small shifts that can help you respond with more calm and connection. What if the hardest part of parenting isn't the toddler years or the teenage years, but the learning to let go again and again at every single stage? Today's guest has been doing this work for decades, both professionally and personally. She has raised two kids into young adulthood, 19 and 21, and she is going to share what she has learned about growing up and letting go one stage at a time. Welcome to Compassionate Heart Parenting. I'm your host, Michelle. Have you ever noticed that just when you finally feel like you understand your child's current stage, they move on to the next one and you have to learn everything all over again? Today's guest knows this better than almost anyone. Rachel Thomas is a therapist specializing in emotionally focused family therapy, an attachment-based approach to helping caregivers show up as accessible, responsive, and engaged so children can develop healthy, secure attachment. And as a parent of two young adults, ages 19 and 21, she has lived every stage of this work, both professionally with her clients and personally in her own home. If you've ever wondered why secure attachment is so much harder to create in real life than it sounds in theory, or if you're in the thick of trying to figure out how much to hold on and how much to let go, this conversation is going to speak directly to you. So, Rachel, hello. You have now parented all the way through. Your kids are 19 and 21. And before we get into the clinical piece, I'd really love to start with a story. Is there a moment from a particular stage in parenting that stays with you, something that taught you what showing up and letting go actually looks like in real life?
Well, I love this. So, first of all, thank you for having me on. I'm very excited to have this conversation. But I love this conversation about letting go because as we speak, my son is moving out today or tomorrow for his sophomore year of college. And so it's another opportunity for me to let him go as he moves into a new living situation and
Mm,
just another phase of the process. So it doesn't stop just because they're young adults. It continues into raising adult children. It's a different
mhm.
dynamic. But it was interesting when I was thinking about a story that really stayed with me, and I would share that there are two. One is that I had elementary school age children, young elementary school, and
Mhm.
like I would say like first and third grade or even kindergarten. I have to look at the year. But
Mhm.
there was that morning rush of get your shoes on, get your water, let's get your lunches. And like I
Yes.
was really like yelling and stressed and running around and just like I was so frustrated. Get in the car. I remember yelling and dropped them off. And that day there was a horrific school shooting and in an elementary school. And it changed my life forever because I was like, I will never, and I don't use always and never very often, but I will never drop my kids off in that
Mhm.
place emotionally again,
Mm.
because you never know. And talk about
Wow.
letting go and the fear as a mom, right? Like, so
Mm.
I remember as frustrated as I would get, I would always take some time to get regrounded, reconnected so that
Mhm.
my goodbye to them was loving and kind. And I still was frustrated. I'm not saying we had perfect mornings, not at all, but I was able to shift so that that wasn't the last thing that would leave them for the day. And I
Yeah.
do think it was like a pivotal shift
Mm.
in the dynamic. So that was one. And
Yeah.
then another one is that as a working parent and um, somebody who is very committed to my work, I have a group practice and I have a number of clinicians and clients and doing juggling a lot. And I was building my business at the time.
Mhm.
And so I was managing raising a family and building a business, which I know many can relate to. And and it was hard to have like to not feel guilty as a mom when I would leave and to also um like when I was with them not be distracted by all the things that I knew were pulling on me. And
Mhm.
so what I would do is a lot of what we all do is I would be on my phone or I would be on my computer while I was hanging out with my kids. And
Right.
there was one time, and I again can't remember ages, I'm terrible at that, but I want to say sixth grade, middle schoolish, where my son hid my phone. It was probably elementary school still, but he hid my phone from me, and it wasn't a funny thing. It was like I don't want you to be on your phone, um,
Mhm.
and and I'll never forget that because I had a little panic of did he put it in the toilet or something like terrible. But he did not. He hid it under the sofa. But but then I had this awareness of quality over quantity was so important to me to create time with them. When I'm with them, I'm going to be present and engaged with them, and then when I'm at work I'm going to be 100% at work. And so I remember saying to clients like I hardly answer my phone because I'm either with clients or I'm with my family. Like that was that
Mhm.
phase of life
Mhm.
where it was like, this is what's happening for me. So those two things come to mind as you were asking that question.
Oh, I love that. That's so on point from where I'm at right now because I just finished the book, How to Break Up with Your Phone.
Oh,
Because
yes.
I've been talking to my kids about having, healthy
Technology and
screen
yeah,
relationships, if that's even a thing. And then I thought, well, I should look at my own relationship with my phone. If I'm really gonna try to be a good influence, it has to start with me. And so I have learned a lot of like what pulls me and when I pick it up and how they
yes.
feel when I pick it up. And it's so, yeah, our phones and our kids' phones, that's a whole
That's a
thing
whole
in
nother
and of
topic.
itself.
Yes.
But I love that your son was so wise,
Yeah.
so wise to hide the phone and that you actually listened. You could have gotten mad at him and you could have punished him and you could have got defensive. It's
Right.
work, it's so
Right.
important. There's a million ways that it could have gone, but it sounds like you just took it to heart and really listened to the message that he didn't say out loud, right? The message that
Right.
he said through his actions, which was, Mom, I need you when you're here. And
Yeah.
that quality over quantity, because I think that I don't know about everyone else, but I know I can feel so guilty
Always. Yeah.
about being spread thin. And so it helps to say, okay, well, I can carve out, 30 minutes or however long I can of quality time.
Yeah.
I can shut off my distractions and just focus in. And that goes so far with our kids
It
that
really
then
does.
we can still have a lot on our plate, which is often the
Yeah.
case.
And I always say those moments where you don't even realize it, like in the car, or
Mhm.
those good night moments of reading them stories and like bath
Mhm.
time, like those are all moments of dinner. Those are times where you can just be present. So, yeah,
Right, yes.
yeah.
And the other one that you mentioned about the rushed mornings and the
Mhm.
school shooting, like I think so many parents can relate to those mornings
Yeah, I
and
know.
that mornings can just be frustrating and overwhelming, especially with young kids. But then as kids get older, it's kind of like the
It's
frustrations change.
it's just
It's a
different.
Right,
Yeah,
it's a different kind of frustration. And I love that you had hearing about that terrible experience and being aware of that terrible tragedy gave you something positive with your own kids.
it really
And
did.
um, yeah, I mean, I think that happened before my kids were in elementary school. And so I have thought about that so much, like almost every morning when I would drop them off, I would think about
Mhm.
that. And unfortunately, it didn't change. I wasn't able to just then, in and of itself, like have like a nice, um, warm goodbye all the time. But I will say, I was always working towards it, which, for any of the parents listening who are
Yes.
struggling with that, I just want to say,
Yes.
like, working towards it counts. Like, I had
Let
a,
me edit a little bit because I'm past that phase. And so in my mind's eye, that's how I hold it.
it
But
was
I
like
can
black and white. Right, right.
guarantee I'm going to edit myself a little bit in my, in honesty, I'm sure there were some
Oh,
times.
yeah,
Where,
of
yeah,
course, of
yeah,
course. But it does help to have like like a centering, like this is what I want. Even if
yeah,
it doesn't always happen, it's like working towards and coming back to. I feel
yeah,
like that helps a lot. So
absolutely.
I'm wondering, how would you describe emotionally focused family therapy for parents who are maybe new to that term and what it means?
Just on a high level, I will share that Dr. Sue Johnson created this very, very powerful model where we know the power of attachment bonds. We know that attachment connection with our little ones, but even our adult relationships impact how we show up in the world. And our attachment system will learn strategies to cope when we are in distress or disconnect with others. So, in emotionally focused family therapy, we're looking at the emotional context, the emotional backdrop in the family system, but we're also looking at these attachment relationships and how people are navigating in this family system the dynamic of love, of connection, of getting your needs met, of being able to speak your truth, like all of the things that we all crave and want as humans to feel important and special and loved, that shows up in our family dynamic. And the caregivers, the parental system shows up in this way that they are the stronger, wiser other for these young children to young adults to adults with their own children. So it doesn't go away just because their age might be that they're no longer children. The
Hmm.
attachment bond is still there. So to back up, when there's disconnect, when a parent comes in with some nervousness or with some upset, that can impact the child in a way that then they're going to respond the way they respond from their attachment strategy. Or the flip side, the caregiving parent system might be more avoidant or more distant or more passive. And then that might impact or that will impact the child's their own attachment styles. So in EFFT we're looking at the whole system and we're figuring out how are things getting stuck, where are the blocks to healthy secure attachment bonds, and are the parental caregiving systems able to navigate in a way where they can get their support so that they can show up as stronger, wiser other for their children. At every stage. So we need, as parents, to get support from another trusted attachment figure in our world so that we can show up as the best whole parent that we can with our children. So we don't go to our children to get our needs met. We get our
Hmm.
needs met with either another co-parent or another support system or therapist or a friend so that then we can show up the best way possible. Um,
Hmm.
I think I'll pause. Is there anything else you would add just from a high level explaining the model?
Well, that part that you said, I think is so critical and unfortunately kind of countercultural that we as parents need support because I remember feeling like that I was failing and I've just assumed I'm supposed to be able to handle it all. Like
Yeah.
my husband works, I'm working part-time, so the parenting is mostly on me. And if I was not handling it well, and it was like I was struggling, and it
Yeah.
never occurred to me that I needed support or that I could, reach out for support or Um, and so I think that part that you said is so critical and so unfortunately, yeah, I just feel like in our culture, it's not the norm to have a community of people surrounding the parents and the family. It's like maybe if the parent is lucky, they have a co-parent. Maybe if they're
Yeah.
lucky, they work well together. Maybe if they're lucky, they have like an aunt
Extended.
or a,
Yeah.
yeah, a
Yeah.
grandparents around or maybe friends, but it's not, it's I don't know if that's true of your experience, but it seems like it's not uncommon for parents to either, it could be a single parent, which a single parent can surround themselves with support as well, but sometimes they might have moved, they might be new to an area or whatever, or they might have a partner, but they might not be able to lean on each other. So,
Yeah.
how do you help the parents get themselves support first? Because you might be the person because they're coming to you for support, right? But I'm guessing sometimes they might come with this idea of, can you please fix my kiddo?
Right.
And it sounds like you have to zoom out and say, okay, let's look at the whole thing. Let's look at everything that's happening here. Let's look at you and kiddo's relationship, but let's look at you, mom or dad, and see what you're needing and whether or not you have support. So, how do you shift the focus from something's going on with this kiddo to, hey, what about you? Do you have the support you need?
Yeah. I love this question because I do feel like it's getting better. I do think parents are a lot more honest about how hard it is, but some of those messages still show up like it shouldn't be this way, or somebody else, it just looks so much easier. They don't have the same struggles with their kids because their kids are sleeping or their kids are better in school or what, all that comparison stuff just keeps you more in isolation and in shame. And again, when we're thinking about attachment, we need each other, we need community, we need connection so that we can be
Mhm,
our best human moving forward. And so,
mhm,
so I think when, well, I know when a family first comes in, I want to know what's it like to be in this family. I want to know from everyone. And
mhm,
it's so important to me that it's not this pathologizing, focusing on this one person in the family system. That's the problem. That doesn't mean
mhm,
that those behaviors or things that you're concerned about aren't valid, but I want to look at every person's experience in the family of how they're showing up. And then I want to meet with different, maybe the siblings, the parents, the different subsets in the family, the step, if there's extended family steps and, step family members. And so as many humans who are involved, I want because families are also looking very different, which I love. So who's in the family is an important question when you're meeting with a family. But when I meet with the parents or the caregiving system, I want them to know, and this is true of anyone who might be listening to this podcast, is you wouldn't be listening to this podcast, you wouldn't be in my office if you didn't care and love and worry about how you're showing up as a parent in
mhm,
this dynamic right now. And I want them to see that I see their intention, I see their strong need to get help, and I want them to know that they have more impact than they think. So this drop off
mhm,
my kid and just help me fix my kid is not going to
mhm.
have the biggest impact as is going to be had when we have mom and son or mom and dad are more
Oh,
closer or dad and when we can create that relational
mhm,
bond, the healing is going to be so much faster and better for the kiddo.
mhm,
So we want to really empower the parents that like it's not about just fixing this child, it's really about helping the family so that all
mhm.
of you can kind of move forward in a new way. And by
I love
doing by focusing on the parents first, making sure that they're united, that's maybe an important place to start. It depends, but yeah.
Yeah, I love that because what you said there that I think we can take for granted probably as therapists, how much influence the parents have over in their kids' lives. Like, because I think even sometimes, probably when they're young, it can feel like, I don't know, my kid doesn't like me, they don't listen
Mm,
to me. I don't feel like I have any influence. I feel helpless here. And I'm sure that especially if that started when they were young, as they get older, it only feels more and more. And it sometimes I feel like parents get messages about, teenagers
I was
letting
just thinking about
go
teenagers.
and how much are you supposed to let go and how much not. But
Hmm.
but what you're saying is so powerful. The parents might come in with this assumption like, I can't do anything with this kid. You're the expert, you're the professional, you handle them. And you're saying, oh no, mom or dad or whoever, you actually are so powerful in your kiddo's life. Like it may not feel like you are, and it may feel like
Yeah.
they're pushing you away, and it may feel like all this contention, is that a word?
Yeah. Yeah,
that
exactly.
um that actually you have so much influence here. And if we can help you access that influence and access that parent-child relationship again, then you strengthening your bond and you being in the picture is going to be way more powerful than me, a therapist, just working with kiddo. I mean, there might be situations where that's appropriate, but I
Yeah.
really hear you. That makes a lot of sense. Am I understanding that parents sometimes have that misconception that not
Mm.
really knowing or understanding their power, of the bond, really, the parental bond.
And their part in the dynamic. Like, take
Mm,
me and my husband as like an anxious parent. My typical go-to is to ask a ton of questions and to like try and pester, and
mm,
get information, especially from my son, like tell me what's going on, when are da 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 da. Like he immediately is like, oh my God, right? But then my husband has the same need to get the information, but he's like, he'll tell us when he wants to. It's all good. Um, so sorry. So this either of those responses impact your relationship with the kid. So
mm,
mine has this response from the of my son to like kind of back away from me or tell me to
mhm,
back off. And then my husband's is like, it almost looks like he doesn't care, or it looks like he doesn't,
mhm,
he doesn't want to know. I don't matter. Like both of those can land in ways of like, you're too intense, back off, you're trying to control and manage me, or
mhm,
you aren't even asking, you don't even care about me. Like, so we need to look at our parts, because it's
mm,
okay for me to be the anxious asking questions person, and it's okay for my husband to be more avoidant,
mhm,
and we need to stretch in ways that show up as the stronger, wiser other, which means that I need to be regulated so that I can have a conversation with my son that doesn't come out with anxiety and it doesn't
mhm,
push him away. And then my husband can be brave and lean in and have the questions with my son so that he knows he matters to him. So both
mhm.
are important, but their
Right.
their
Yeah.
impact is also a part that needs to be evaluated. How are you showing up?
Hmm. Right. And how you're showing up is having an impact on your kiddo. And
Exactly.
so it's not just your kiddo doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Exactly.
Like kind of like when your son hid the phone under the couch, like he
Yeah.
was trying to communicate something and trying to send a message, which I think is a great way to look at probably most, if not all, of kids' behaviors. Like,
Right.
if it's a difficult
Yes.
behavior, what are they trying to tell me? Are they
Yes.
trying to tell me, back off, I feel managed? Are they trying to tell me, I don't feel like you care? Like they're
Yeah.
stomping around the house trying to, kind of be noticed. Are
Yeah.
they, yeah, so I guess I hear that part that maybe parents don't always recognize how whatever they're doing is having an impact. And so
Yeah.
if they can start to notice that, oh, you get quiet, or you start to push me away, or you start to say, leave me alone because I'm asking too many questions,
Right.
or the opposite, then
Right.
they can start to show up a little bit differently.
Exactly.
Like you
Yeah.
said, stretch themselves.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's important to look at how our attachment strategies show up. Yeah.
Hmm. And I'm wondering if there are like other kind of common misconceptions or common fears that you see parents come with that you start to help them look at it a different way and see things a different way. But are there any kind of common fears or misconceptions that you see parents commonly come in with?
I do think that there's this phase of like the letting go teenager, young adult, where it's almost like you think they don't need you or want you, and that's just not true. And so what it looks like might be different, but you are 100% right that all behavior in the context of attachment makes sense. And so we always need that level of connection and knowing that that caregiving support system is there. But it looks different than it did when they were younger. And so some misconceptions is like, oh, they don't want anything to do with me. Like I used to joke that my son wants to pretend he doesn't have a mom, when he was in high school, so I say that, but I also know he still needs a parent and he still needs somebody to show up and see him if he's being a little off or something. It still needs to check in and be there and also hold him accountable. My kids are college age now, so there's still accountability around certain things like a level of academic accountability, a level of financial accountability. Like there is still parenting happening at different phases. So yeah.
And it does, it kind of, I can hear that, as kids get older, it does change a lot. And I feel like the letting go is sort of maybe and related to when do I push and when do I not push? Because there was a couple of times recently where like my daughter didn't want to do this thing called safety patrol in her school where she gets to like let kids out of the car. And it was 3 weeks before school started, and she was like, I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it, I'm not doing it. And I was pretty sure that the anxiety was more that one, it was anxiety, and two, that it was more about school starting and like, and it was, I thought, you know what? I'm gonna say you're gonna do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm going to say you can give it a period of time. I'm not going to force you to do it for the whole school year, but you're going to do it for a period of time. And like, I know that you're strong enough to walk through
Yeah.
this.
And I'll be right
And
here. Yep.
I'll be right here. Luckily, it turned out she loves it. It was great. And it wasn't really about that. I think it was just the anxiety, but we don't always know as parents. And then there's other times where like with my son, I have, a lot of parents I hear push their kids to do a sport or do whatever. And
Mhm.
again, that's not always the wrong thing. But for
Right.
him, I've felt like, with his personality, I'm not going to push, but I do really want him to have something that's valuable to him. So we've talked about having other things that are valuable besides a game
Yeah.
that he loves. And over time, he's found something that's kind of like not, it's kind of outside of the norm. And it's climbing. And so that was a case of not pushing. But I feel like that's so tough for parents, especially like you said, if they maybe are anxious, if they feel like, my kid doesn't want me and they're kind of feeling like they're just going to do what they want. Do you see parents struggling with that? When to sort of press in?
Mhm.
Maybe that's a better language than push. When
Yeah.
to press in and say, hey, you've got this, and when to say, you know what? It's okay. We can skip this. Or do you see parents struggling with that
I
dilemma
mean,
also?
as you're talking, I'm thinking about every phase of parenting that I had that because I would tie my kids' shoes I would still be tying my kids' shoes if they let me. I mean, so it's like at some point you've got to like be patient and let them tie their own shoes. That's part of letting go. It's like they can do it. It might take 5 times as long. So letting go as that pushing in and having an anxious child grow, my daughter like struggling with at what point do I make her, and at what point do I listen to her? Like it was always, every step of the way was always that. And then in different ways with my son as well. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I guess what I would say here is, you know, your child. And what I love is what you're saying, Michelle, which is that it is something that you really reflected on with both of those situations of what do you feel is the best for your child in this situation, and how are you going to show up? Like that's just lovely. Because as we all know, like there's a lot of shoulds and there's a lot of shame in parenting. Like I enrolled my daughter in dance too young, and she froze on stage, and I have regret about that. Like I should not have made her do that. So
Mhm.
there are things that like you do because you think that's the right thing at that phase, and it just was it was not the right. So and I forgive myself and I have self compassion. But that, I think it's so important that we recognize that the comparison thing, but also like we know our kids and we're doing the best we can in this moment, making this decision. And ultimately, it's not about being perfect as a parent, it's about being present, to showing up as ARE, we call it, accessible, responsive, and engaged parents. Not 100% of the time. We are not asking. Secure attachment does not mean that we are this stronger, wiser other 24/7, showing up as accessible, responsive, and engaged all the time. Like that is so painful to imagine. All the shame that would emphasize, like, would get even more compounded. So it's really about having this awareness like you have with these two situations of like what is best. And if I encourage my daughter to go anyway and it goes terribly and she has a panic attack and she doesn't end up, like, I'll be right there to comfort her, and she'll know
Mhm.
she's okay, she survived it, she learned something, and now we know that this situation doesn't work for her. So
Mhm.
no
Right.
matter what, you're there as a presence to help her navigate life. So it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes me think about what you said earlier with the first step, if that feels accurate, is helping the parents get support. Because I'm thinking
Yeah,
about, like you said, we're
exactly.
carrying our shoulds and our have tos, and
Mhm.
what are the other parents going to think?
Exactly.
And I shouldn't, be doing this, and I should be doing that, and they should be able to do this. And then we sit down with our kiddo, and all of that is coming with us. And so, of course, it makes it hard to tune in and just hear out the kiddo. And so I find that for myself, when I can go to my listening partner and express all my anxieties and fears and or frustrations and like blah, get it all out. Or maybe if I was put in a dance class too young or something like that and I need to talk that through, then I've kind of cleared the slate. So that way when I come with my kids, I'm not carrying so much stuff myself, and it's a
Yeah,
little easier to just be present and listen with whatever they bring me. Because of course, as parents, like you're saying, we have stuff. And so we're kind of holding our stuff, and then we're trying to hold our kiddos' stuff.
exactly. Yeah. And I'm fast forward again, having a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old. Now I get to hear how some of the things I did landed, or some of how they remember. And it's very hard not to get defensive or want to help explain the context of like why maybe I made that decision at that time, or their truth is so different than what you know to be true. And so but I also appreciate the conversation because I want to know how they feel about things and where do they stand. Like, so you think I did that wrong? What do you think you might do when you're a parent? Like but it is the hardest thing. And then later I can go to my husband and be like, oh my God, he really believes that. Like they think that's what happened, or they have no idea what was going on in that moment, that we were like the most whatever stressed financially, or like who knows. But
Mhm.
I have somebody I can go to so that I can get that support and still show up and hear their narratives and be there to repair if needed, or yeah.
Yeah, I
It's so
really
hard.
love that. That it's you can listen and still have that going on in the background because you know you're going to be able to
I
take
know.
it to your husband
Exactly.
after,
Exactly.
which makes
Exactly.
it easier for you to listen and show up for
Exactly.
them.
Yeah.
Um, let me see if there was any other questions in here that I wanted to check in with that I guess when you think about letting go over the stages, um, how do you feel like that changes from when they're little to, preteen to teenage years? How would you describe how that letting go changes?
For me, I'm just going to share for me, it's what you said in the very beginning about like right when you feel like you have a handle on a certain phase of parenting, it changes. And so part of letting go is letting go of the control of like I have a plan and it's working, and then because it's all going to
Yes.
change the next whatever chapter is going to come. And my mom used to say you raise them to let them go. And I think for me as a more like anxious parent, that ends up translating as like wanting to manage or wanting to control or wanting to be involved. And part of my letting go process is trusting these incredible humans that they can handle it and that they can do it on their own. I mean, I'm thinking about when both kids started driving. It's the most
Oh my
terrifying experience. And my daughter's 4'10", and I remember her getting in the car. She looks, at the time, she still looked like she was 12. And she gets in the car and she's got my son in the seat next to her, and they drive away. And I go, this is like the ultimate letting go. Like this is it. Like they're driving away. This is my life, my heart, so that's a part, and so letting go is also trusting. And then you fast forward and you're letting them go live somewhere else and have a life in their own world. And so
Mhm.
letting
Mhm.
go is not like being done. It just
Mhm.
means letting go of a piece of how you've been showing up so you can show up in a new way. Um,
Mhm.
and really recognizing where do you go in the grief. I have one more story. I will
Yeah.
never forget when my son was in middle school, he told me to stop touching him. So I realized, I said, I don't touch you. And he goes, you're always touching me. I said, I, I really don't think I am. And then we're in the car and I realize I have my hand in his hair. I'm rubbing his back. I'm rubbing his shoulder. I'm touching him all the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do touch you all the time. And he was like, I know. And so I said, okay, here's the deal. I'm not going to touch you anymore. It breaks my heart. I'm not going to touch you anymore. But if you ever want a hug or you ever want me to like hold you or rub your back like I used to when you were younger, like I'm 100% there for it. Like, so then it became a joke that anytime we had family pictures, I would make him stand next to me because he would have to put his arm around me. But I had to go somewhere with my grief. I couldn't
Mhm.
go to him and be crying that I can't touch him anymore because this
Right.
young kid was brave enough to ask me not to touch him anymore. That was
Mhm.
huge for him. So
Mhm.
I had to go somewhere else with that grief of like, my baby doesn't want me to touch him. My baby, where we cuddled every night and oh, we used to, that whole love, like that chapter was over and I had to grieve that chapter. And so you have to have support for that. Going back to that, you have to have support so you can grieve and feel those feelings. And it's not that I don't let him know that that impacted me. It's okay to say like, oh, that makes mommy sad, but I'll
Mhm.
respect you, but I don't want him to feel like now he has to take care of me, or I
Right.
shouldn't have said anything because now I feel guilty because she's making me feel
Right.
guilty.
Right.
So yeah.
Yes, I love that. And I love what you said about letting go of one way of showing up so that we can show up in a new way, because
Yeah.
that makes it a little bit more palatable. But like you said, it's
Exactly.
okay to have these grief stage, at different stages to have this grief. And I also love what you said about embracing the messiness. Like,
Mhm.
I very much felt like if I just get it right, if I have all my ducks in a row, then I will have little kids who get out of the car and
I
get back in the
know.
car when I ask them to and are, I guess, clean or I don't know, whatever it is that I wanted them to listen. I don't know,
All the
and
things.
then to embrace, like, oh, actually, real life is messy.
Very.
It is
And
messy,
families are
emotional.
messy. Families are
Families are
messy.
messy, yes. And I had to really let go of that idea of control. And if I just do enough or do it right, then everything will fall into place. And the
Mhm.
reality is, I can be doing everything right. And it's still messy because life is supposed to be messy. And kids are supposed to have emotions, and they're not
Exactly.
always supposed to be like, okay, mom, I'll get off the playground and come get in the car. Like, that's
Yeah.
not real life, right? So I love that idea of just noticing, like, oh, I really, really want control and I really want things to go a certain way. And I
Certain
even
way.
feel like if
Yeah.
I just try hard enough,
Yep.
and that could be its own grieving process. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't control their life or keep them completely safe or keep them in a bubble. Like you said, letting them go in the car. And then there's all different kinds of like letting them go into spaces where they might get hurt emotionally or physically, or they might not do or say what we want them to do or say.
Mhm.
So many things that we
So
have
many
to let
things.
go of as parents, and it's so hard. Um, I love that you share your personal stories as well.
Always.
It's so helpful to hear that it's not, you know, that us as therapists, that we are in this soup, we're all in it together.
100%. Yeah. And they know I share it, by the way. They know there are certain stories I'm not allowed to share, but they do know that I share stories. That's part of the authenticity of this work is that it's universal.
Mhm.
Attachment is universal, and it's not, there is no perfect parent or perfect family.
Right.
And so I get permission to share some of my relationship stuff and my family stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that gives me chills when you say that because I think um, how validating for every parent that comes to see you and every parent that listens to you that they instantly are like, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not
Yeah.
alone. Rachel struggles sometimes too, or Rachel struggle with that. It's like, okay, I'm not alone. And that in and of itself can be very
Yeah.
healing and validating and
Yeah.
normalizing.
Exactly.
So I'm wondering, do you have a specific time you need to jump off before I ask a couple more questions?
I have to end at 12:30. Is that
Okay.
okay? How long
Yes.
was it supposed to be?
I didn't have a specific
Ish.
amount of
Okay.
time ish, yes.
Okay.
So, well, then I'll ask the final question. Just as any parent who's listening, who is in the thick of it right now and kind of wondering, well, did I make that decision right, or am I leaning in enough with my teenager, or am I letting go enough with my younger kid, and they're having that kind of like uneasiness? What would you say to that parent that's maybe questioning themselves and some of the things that are happening right now?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I think that giving yourself permission to not know is really hard. And it's really important. It's like you are going to make the best decision that you know with the resources you have and the supports. And then you have to like kind of jump. And so I think knowing that it's okay, like your two examples with your son and your daughter, it's like, you know, you had to make a decision that you felt was best. And this back and forth and like driving ourselves crazy making decision making, and because there's very few absolutes in parenting, and there's so many variables of specific um, context and dynamics and emotions and situational components that feed into your decision that it's too hard. So even in my trainings or with my families, when they directly ask me questions like what you just said, there's so many answers that end up in it depends. It depends, it
Mhm.
depends, it depends. And they get frustrated with me because it depends.
Mhm.
It's not, I
Mhm.
can't give you a black and white, one way,
Right.
yes or no, absolute. And so giving yourself some self-compassion that you are showing up the best you can in the best way you know how with this
Mhm.
specific dynamic with your specific child, and to give
Right.
yourself compassion around that and get support. So as somebody who helps support raise a daughter with pretty severe OCD, I always say her therapist was like another co-parent for us.
Mhm.
There were
Mhm.
components of raising her, especially in high school, that I have tremendous gratitude for her therapist, helping me and her dad, but also helping her, like helping
Mm-hmm.
my son, like helping all of us to navigate what was a very, very painful process. And so getting support and recognizing you need support is sometimes the biggest gift you can give your kid, but also yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's how I would answer that.
Yeah, I love that it's okay not to know.
Right.
And there isn't this is the right thing to do. Most of the time it's like it depends.
Right.
And um I like what you said before we got on that you don't consider yourself an expert. Obviously, people could consider you an expert. I'm sure people do consider you an expert, but it's kind of like you're saying the parents are the expert. Like we're there to guide parents and to offer information, sometimes to help look at it a different way. But that parents really do have so much knowledge and wisdom. They know their kiddo better than anyone
Um,
else. And I love that idea of helping parents even be able to trust themselves
yeah.
more.
Yeah. And recognize that they have their own backdrop of how they were parented and how they think they should parent and their own experiences of trauma or relational distress or their own strategies of how they show up. So being able to recognize that we're human showing up as with our humanness, and that is another reason why getting eyes or getting a therapist or support is maybe really helpful, so that it's like, wow, I didn't realize I had these like kind of blind spots or areas that were
Right.
really impacting,
Oh my
not in
goodness.
ways I want. Yeah.
Yes, I just had that thought today. I wonder what one of my blind spots, some of my blind spots are in this area.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm in
Rachel,
Arizona and it's like 120 out. And I'm like,
oh,
what am I doing sitting outside?
oh my
But
gosh.
that noise got really loud, but now I'm like sweating. So I got to come back inside. Whew. Okay.
Well, thank
Okay.
you so much for coming on.
Oh,
It's
I
been
love chatting with
so,
you.
yes, it's been so lovely chatting with you as well and learning from you. And I wish I could, maybe one day I'll get to meet you in person.
I would love
Um,
that.
so thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge and experience and your own parenting stories, because I feel like that is so helpful to parents. And
Absolutely.
I'll say, yeah, for all of you listening, if you are enjoying the show, please consider rating it and reviewing it. That's how people can learn about the show, and hopefully more parents can learn about emotionally focused family therapy and just, yeah, showing up with our kids as best we can and supporting each other in this way as well. So
Yes.
the light in me sees the light in you. Be well.